So let me ask you, I've done a couple of interviews of some of your increasingly famous, internationally famous UK subjects. So I talked to Nigel Farage this week and Tommy Robinson. So I want to ask you about a number of people on the UK political front. So let's start with Keir Starmer. So in Canada, we have a Liberal government, although it's not a Liberal government. It's a radical socialist government. Trudeau is farther to the left by a large margin than our leftist political party has been traditionally. And I got to tell you, it's a bit of a disaster, you might say. Canada now has, our GDP is 60% per capita of that of the US, right? We have real estate prices that are twice as expensive. And those are just the things we know about. And so I would say the leftist tilt in Canada over the last 9 years has been a much worse disaster than we even know yet. And now I can understand why people here turfed out the Conservatives because, well, by my estimation, they weren't Conservatives at all. But God only knows what sort of pack they've brought in. So what are your thoughts about, well, what do you think's on the table for the UK for the next 4 years?
Well, I've interviewed Starmer a few times.
Yeah.
I did him for my Life Story show, which is like a 2.5 hour interview. And I think, probably like you probably believe, that if you interview someone for 2.5 hours, they can't hide the entire time.
Yeah.
You're going to work out really what they're like. I think he's fundamentally a decent guy.
Yeah.
I think he's a kind of regular guy. There's nothing particularly flamboyant or special about him. He's a self-made man. He had a very tough upbringing. His mother was very ill for a very long period of time, and he effectively was her carer a lot of the time. A bit disenfranchised from his dad, no money. And he rose to become the top of the legal profession, Director of Public Prosecutions, the top lawyer in the country. And now he's risen to be the top politician in the country, to be Prime Minister. That's a pretty remarkable achievement.
Yeah.
He's no silver spoon guy at all. He is somebody who drifted out to the far left in the Jeremy Corbyn era, said he thought Corbyn would make a good Prime Minister. That's a blotch on his thought process, because Corbyn would have been a total mad far left disaster. But interestingly, and I think encouragingly, Starmer is not so intransigent in his views that he's not prepared to change. The example being the issue of trans women in women's sport. You know, he started off by saying that, you know, women, all trans women are women and should be treated as such.
Even the violent rapists.
Which
it's just, you know, it's a problem.
Exactly.
Those edge cases.
You and I completely agree about this. It's obviously preposterous. But it's interesting to watch him change the positions. And now I think he now says 99% of women don't have penises, was his last statement on the thing. He's come a long way, right? So, you know, I think he understands that to be successful in Britain as a politician, you've got to occupy the centre ground, really. Historically, almost every leader we've had in modern times effectively has been in the centre ground. From Blair to Thatcher to, you know, you go back and you pick any of them, they're all pretty well hovering in this kind of area. And then you have the extremities who create a lot of noise, but never actually get elected. And I think that Starmer's done very, very well, notwithstanding the uselessness of his opposition, to bring his party more to the centre. And he's understood he's got to have Middle England feeling he's not a threat. Now, the challenge for him is there's no money. You know, we're a pretty bankrupt country at the moment in terms of money to spend as a government. He's already ruled out 3/4 of all tax revenue potential, saying he's not going to do this, not going to do that, not going to do this. So he's left really with a tax the rich strategy. He's going to hammer people like me. He'd hammer you if you were in this country. He's going to come after, you know, money from the houses, money from schools. He wants to put VAT on private schools, independent schools, et cetera, et cetera. He's going to raise tax for the rich and so on. I don't like politics of envy, generally. And I don't think it works. So he's got to have more tools in his box. He's banking on the economy improving. He might get lucky, but you've got to have growth to do the things he wants to do about public services. Our health system is crumbling. Our education system is crumbling. Crime is soaring. You know, you go through almost any metric. The seas are full of sewage. You know, it's like everything is wrong right now. But to fix it, you've got to spend significant sums of public money. If you're going to do that without taxing 3/4 of the country, you're going to end up just taxing people who may say, you know what, I'm going to leave.
Yes,
And
or
then
the
you
money's going to leave.
Then you have a brain drain of the creative bosses who might be employing thousands of people, and then where you left. So I think he's got a lot of challenges, but I wouldn't underestimate him. I think anyone that's seen off the far left as he's done with his party, and he was quite.
You think he's done that fairly effectively?
He was pretty courageous in the campaign when he supported Israel pretty emphatically, despite the fact that there were a lot of, I mean, there's 5 million Muslims in this country, most of whom would have been persuaded to probably vote Labour.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that would have hurt him in the Muslim communities. I think he factored in that better to do the right thing, and we're still going to win anyway. And I think that's, it was a bit of moral courage shown there. So I don't underestimate him.
What about the people around him?
I think he's got quite a smart cabinet, actually.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I do, and I think they've hit the ground running in quite a smooth way. Look, his whole strategy is going to be, don't scare the horses and the children, right? Let's just steady as we go. And it may be that Britain's ready for that after a very turbulent 5 prime ministers in 5 years, the chaos of Boris Johnson, the madness of Liz Truss. Rishi Sunak really got a horrible hospital pass. I think we're ready for a bit of just calm stability.
And you think he could offer that?
I think he can offer. I've already seen signs since he became prime minister of a well-organised man with a well-organised team who seem to know what they're doing, who've got a plan. And whether it works or not is another issue. Part of the Conservative problem was everything they promised they didn't deliver on. From stopping the small boats coming over from France, from the raging legal migration, which has gone from tens of thousands to 700,000 people last year, net legal migration, completely unsustainable. The Tories kept promising we're going to take it back down to tens of thousands. They never did. They said they'd sort out the NHS waiting lists. They're the worst they've ever been. My mother had a heart attack 8-9 months ago and was left on a trolley in accident and emergency out in the corridor for 7 hours, having been diagnosed with a heart attack. And there were 35 other people on trolleys out with her.
That's the state in Canada too.
This is modern day Britain.
Yeah.
Now, he's not a Trudeau. I watched a clip of Trudeau when he's with students and someone says something about mankind. He went, oh, no. We say people kind. So he would literally change the most iconic line in the history of modern world, which is
he would also insist that you change it too.
Right, but one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Neil Armstrong, the first lunar landing, would now have to be one small step for a person, one giant leap for peoplekind.
Yeah,
that's world
so poetic
that Trudeau wants. He is insanely woke, and the truth is, if you are like that, it doesn't work, as Canada sadly is seeing. I don't think Starmer's like that. I think he's much more pragmatic. Also think you don't get to be Director of Public Prosecutions in this country, the #1 lawyer in the country, if you're not a smart person. And I think he is a smart person. But can he somehow navigate us to a better place? Possibly. Is he going to be a transformative prime minister where we all wake up in 2-3 years and think, wow, the Starmer revolution? I don't think so.